semiconductor industry. So thank you all for joining us today. As I mentioned, this is the first webinar that SIA is doing, but we plan to do a series of these into the new year to highlight the work that SIA is doing on behalf of the industry. This is a conference call which is separate from the WebEx that you are seeing in front of you. So as such, please mute your line. And then when we get to the questions portion, just obviously unmute and you can ask your question. Or you can also ask your question through the chat module of the WebEx system. So today we have two speakers. Keller, who is SIA's Deputy Director for Global Policy and has really been leading SIA's effort on the MCO Tariff Elimination as well as ITA Expansion, and she was recently in Geneva, so it can give us some updates there. We also have with us Daryl Hatano, who is a former staff member at SIA for many, many years and is now on Semiconductor, but is also in this capacity a member of our World Semiconductor Council Working Group, which is the working level of the WSC that works most closely on these issues. So we'll start off with the presentation that you see in front of you, and Davey we'll hand it over to Daryl for his comments and additional slides that he has, and then we'll back to Davey and then open it up for questions. Thanks again for joining, and I'll hand it over to Davey.
Great. Thank you, Caroline, and good afternoon, everyone. And thank you again for joining today's webinar on one of SIA's top trade policy priorities, which is tariff elimination for advanced semiconductors known as multi-component semiconductors. One second while I switch the slides. So the agenda for today's presentation is I'll first provide a brief update on the ITA Expansion Negotiations that just occurred last week. And then we'll talk about MCOs themselves, what they are, the integration trends, how the MCO definition was developed, some examples of MCOs, as well as the effort in the World Customs Organization to end the Harmonized System to include MCOs. We'll then talk on the impact of MCO tariff elimination, including tariff savings, the growth in MCOs, and the impact on technology and innovation. So first, with the update on ITA expansion negotiations, and just as a bit of background, SIA has actively advocated for MCO tariff elimination via inclusion in an expanded information technology agreement, which is a key trade pact between members of the World Trade Organization, promotes fair and open trade by eliminating duties on certain information and communications technology, or ICT, products. The ITA was concluded in 1997 by 29 participants. Since then, the number of ITA signatories has grown to 80 parties, representing about 97% of world trade in information technology products. And as everybody here knows, there have been significant advancements in technology since 1997, but the ITA agreement has not been updated a single time. It promotes trade in new technologies that have developed in the past 17 years. SIA and many other high-tech associations around the world have actively advocated for an expansion of the ITA to include innovative products like MCOs, machines, GPS devices, loudspeakers, solid-state drives, video cameras, high-tech testing equipment, and other products that drive the digital economy and improve lives. So SIA has been represented at every ITA expansion negotiating round over the past 2 years, including the most recent round in Geneva that occurred last week, December 4th through the 12th. It was our hope that a deal would be reached last week. Unfortunately, negotiators were unable to conclude a deal by the deadline of Friday afternoon. Despite the lack of a positive outcome last week, the deal is very close to resolution. Parties made significant and difficult concessions with the goal of getting a deal done. However, one party resisted even the smallest adjustment, which ultimately led to the inability to conclude a deal last week. It's important to note that a solution could still be reached if parties are able to bridge the very small gaps and solve the differences. It's our hope that informal political consultations over the next few weeks will move the needle forward, and that possibly we'll see a resolution on product scope soon. One thing I would add, it's important to note that MCOs, SIA's highest priority for ITA expansion, were not the stumbling block. They were not what held up these negotiations. This is a significant victory since China had listed MCOs as a sensitive item for quite some time, the only country to do so. Following extensive SIA advocacy and a key breakthrough between U.S. and China last month on the sidelines of the APEC meeting, China has accepted MCOs for inclusion in expanded ITA deal. Well, with that, I'll now turn to Daryl, who will provide background on exactly what MCOs are and why MCO tariff elimination is a top priority for the semiconductor industry. I'll now turn to Daryl.
Thank you, Davey. Yes, I think to start with some stage setting, because I know we all have very different backgrounds on how familiar we are with how the trading systems work. The World Customs Organization has worked with countries around the world and has a harmonized system. So every import or export is coded, and everyone's kind of agreed to use the same code numbers. Chapter 1 of the harmonized system is live animals. Chapter 2 is meat and edible meat organs. Chapter 3 is fish and crustaceans. And it goes on and on until you reach Chapter 85. And Chapter 85 is electrical machinery and equipment and parts. And then with that, number 8501 is electric motors, 8502 is electric trading sets, and that goes on until you hit 8541. And this is where basic discrete semiconductors, or diodes, transistors, also a few things like photovoltaic cells would be classified under 8541. And then 542 is electronic integrated circuits, and that's the area that we'll be focusing on today. Next slide. With 85, there are various notes that help explain terms used there. And what is most important for us is Note 8. Under Note 8, there's little talks about 8541 products, and then Note B talks about electronic integrated circuits. Next slide. Under the harmonized system, 8542 is defined on the screen, and basically there are three types of integrated circuits. Monolithic, where there's only one chip in the package. Hybrid, which has some of the active elements, but also includes passive elements. And a key word there is the word and, which we've put in red, because you have to have both of these in order to qualify as a hybrid. And passive elements have to be obtained by thin or thick film technology. So we'll out later that many of the MCOs are disqualified, not considered hybrids, because they were not obtained by thin or thick film, and you have that and in there. The third type of integrated circuit is multi-chip integrated circuits, and about 2002 is the last time this note was amended to include multi-chip integrated circuits. And so what we're talking about is adding a new little 4 for multi-components, hopefully 2017. The other part in this note is that last sentence there, which talks about classifications under the heading, the headings 85, 41, and 42, will take precedence over all the other headings. So a semiconductor can be considered a semiconductor, but it can also be considered a part of a printed circuit board, a part of a numerical control board, might be therefore part of a motor because it's in the motor. The motor might be in a car, so therefore it's an auto part as well. So semiconductor can be many different things, and what this note says is it'll be classified under 85, 41, or 42. We don't have to worry about whether semiconductor is also something else. And that has made the lives of semiconductor trade compliance people a lot easier because they classify things under 85, 41, or 42 and then don't have to worry about the other complications. Next slide. The original ITA in 1996 was intended to cover semiconductors and integrated circuits, but what we've seen is an advance in technology so that now we have these multi-components that don't meet the definition that we just talked about under Note 8. Therefore, the multi-components would not enjoy the zero tariff treatment under the original ITA. So SIA has been working on this kind of on two fronts. One, that we are trying to get MCOs included in the ITA, and as I mentioned previously, we're trying to include it as part of the 2017 update. We're very close to that. I think we're 90% of the way there. They will analyze that at the end of this month, and then I think we'll be all set to have that for 2017. And basically, the definition, more formal definition, I'll be talking about later, by pretty much the same definition that is in the ITA, will be a new little 4, so that under definition of an integrated circuit, there'd be 4 types that would be enumerated. Next slide. So, with that said, as background, you're probably wondering, what is an MCO? And again, we'll get to a more formal definition a few slides later. But basically what it is when you get the monolithic integrated circuit or hybrid or something that's an integrated circuit is currently defined, adding something else like a silicon sensor, an inductor, or some of the other passive devices, and putting them all in a single package. So as we continue, industry has talked about Moore's Law and getting more different types of circuits and just increasing the number of circuits on a single piece of silicon. The industry has also talked about more than more, where we're getting different types of functionality and put it into a single package. And multi-component in particular deals with that development in the industry. Next slide. So we continue to have this trend toward integration, this trend toward more than more, and that's given us the miniaturization as we enjoy our cell phones and other smaller handheld devices, mobile devices, where miniaturization is important. It allows increased energy savings, so our battery life is longer in those mobile devices, and the diversification of the components allows something like a cell phone to do a lot more things than just make telephone calls like it originally did. So this we see continuing, and we see multi-components continuing to be a more important part of the industry going forward. Next slide. So this is more of a diagram of the development of this innovation and these advances, as well as what would be considered a MCO and what would not be. So in the first top diagram, you have the green, which is the printed circuit board, and then there you see several and other discrete and other passive devices. In that case, the little purple there is just a single chip in a package. So you have the monolithic integrated circuits, and that has been considered an integrated circuit, of course, for some time. In the second example, example B, you note there are 2 purple. So what happened is those 2 monolithic integrated circuits got packaged together in 2 integrated circuits, and that meets the definition of a multi-chip package, and that is currently also considered an integrated circuit under 8. So again, not an issue. The next 4 examples, part in red, outlined in red, is considered the multi-component. And example C is the multi-chip with discrete components. So you notice from the printed circuit board above, some of the discrete components now included into that single package is indicated in the red box. In example D, there were some additional passive integration that got added in there. And example E is they added in red the silicon-based sensors, and we'll talk a bit more about what that might be. And in example F is more of a 3D solution, so notice it's packages within packages there. Next. As mentioned, here is the more formal definition of a multi-component that would be used hopefully after 2017 in the Harmonized System, but also used in the Information Technology Agreement. And I won't go into too much detail in this, but basically you need 1 or more of the integrated circuits with one of the following components, and they're specified under the different harmonized code heading numbers. 8532 is capacitors, 8533 is resistors, and 8541 is what we mentioned earlier. That's this transistors and semiconductors and other discrete active devices. Or within 8504, there's a lot of different components, but if it's an integrator classified in that heading, that would also count. So you need one of those components or silicon-based sensors, actuators, and oscillators, and those are also defined in these notes as well, but I have a separate slide on that. So as noted here, formed for all intents and purposes into a single package as a component typically used on a printed circuit board. So lot of words there. We simplify that. So if we go to the next slide, one way to look at this is what is the criteria of where we're going to draw the line. And, on this definition, many in the industry wanted to have it as broad as possible. There was pushback exactly where you draw the line, at what point does it become really a printed circuit board, and how do we make sure that the definition of integrated circuit doesn't go all the way to include end products, for example, which was a fear of some. So one way to look at that definition is you have an integrated circuit in there. It has to be multi-component, so you have to have some of those other things that were mentioned earlier. It must be indivisible, so that means that you can't separate the different components without kind of running the package. It's not a modular plug-and-play sort of thing. The fourth one, I think, is really criteria that helps to limit this definition so that it didn't cover everything, and that is it must be for mounting onto a printed circuit board or some other carrier solely as a component into something bigger. Next slide. The definition was originally developed through the World Semiconductor Council, which is an organization of CEOs that meets every May and then make recommendations to the governments and authorities, and they meet once a year in September. So this group had worked on the definition for some time through a working group. And, again, a lot of give and take and all, but because of the close connection that the World Semiconductor Council has with government, we've been able to come up with a definition and have the support of the governments and authorities of the 6 regions to then try and move this forward. So it needs a lot of discussion, interactive with governments and authorities throughout the process. Next. So some examples, again, of multi-components in different formats. So you see, again, the A, B, C examples where you get the integrated circuit die. You have some of the other things here as well. In the case of example A, it's the chip capacitor would be the additional component in addition to the integrated circuit, which is in blue. Example B, the addition is a sensor. Example C is multiple dies with through silicon vias. It has a die within the substrates as well, and then passes attached on there. And then example D, again that adding some of the MOSFET die with gate controller dies. This would be the gate controller die would be an integrated circuit. The MOSFET would be a discrete under 8541. Next slide. So here's a question of whether or not this device is a multi-component, and we see is a USB stick that the package has been removed, so you can see the inside. So going to that checklist, is there an integrated circuit in here? And the answer is yes. That's the microcontroller. Second is, are there some of those other components? In this case, you've got capacitors, resistors, and oscillators, so that is a positive check. Next, is it indivisible? And, you really can't pull off one of these chips and plug another one in. They're soldered in there together, so it is indivisible. And next, the final point or criteria is whether or not it's intended to be mounted on a printed circuit board or the carrier. And in this case, it isn't. It really is the finished product that is a flash drive that you would be plugging in separately. So this is not an MCO. So at this point, I'll pass it back to Davey, and she'll talk about the impact of MCOs and tariff reductions.
So, as Daryl mentioned, now that we've discussed what an MCO is, I'd like to turn now to why MCOs are important to our industry and the impact MCO tariff elimination will have on our industry and the entire ICT industry. MCOs are the future of the global semiconductor market. Why? Simply because of increased consumer demand for these products. Customers want more powerful, more energy-efficient semiconductors incorporated into smaller products, smartphones, smartwatches, Google Glass, and into new end products that traditionally have not incorporated semiconductor content, such as tire pressure sensors, doorbells, even AC and heating systems. Now, Christmas is around the corner, and retail sites like Kickstarter and others are offering a stunning array of consumer products with Wi-Fi or sensing capabilities driven by advancements in semiconductor technology. Some companies are continuing to respond to this huge demand by creating innovative products like MCOs, which incorporate several types of semiconductors for increased performance, ultra-miniaturization, energy saving, and cost saving. In terms of the impact, we know the impact of tariff elimination on new ICT products like MCOs will be significant because we've seen the positive impact in the past when the original ITA was signed. Between the time that the ITA was signed in 1997 until 2010, global trade ICT products has grown from $1.2 trillion to $4 trillion, a 233% increase. ITA member countries have seen significant growth in ICT goods and services exports, while non-ITA members who did not eliminate tariffs on semiconductors and other products have seen limited and even negative growth. Semiconductors are the largest product category in the ITA, account for 33% of global exports of IT products in 2010. More semiconductor products have the highest export growth rate of all ITA product categories, growing at 7.8% between 2005 and 2010. Providing tariff elimination for MCOs, a significant fast-growing segment of the semiconductor market, will undoubtedly boost overall trade in semiconductors and fuel billions of dollars in investments as companies leverage tariff savings and reduce costs to invest in R&D, design, and manufacturing. Big savings. It's estimated that the inclusion of MCOs or tariff elimination of MCOs will save the global semiconductor industry between $150 and $300 million in tariffs annually. Currently, MCOs face global tariffs ranging from 2.5 to 8% and as high as 25 to 30% in some jurisdictions, including China and Malaysia, which are both parties to the ITA Expansion Negotiations. With half of the $306 billion semiconductor market and 80% of all sales overseas, the semiconductor industry stands to benefit significantly from these tariff savings. Of global trade, total volume of MCO trade is estimated at $19 billion a year, or $54 million a day. As towards smart products continue, demand for MCOs has been growing consistently and will continue to do so in the future. MCOs sales growth. MCOs represent an area of high and consistent future growth for our industry. MCO growth is estimated to grow faster than the overall semiconductor market, growing by 10% annually over the next 5 years. This beats growth in all other semiconductor products. As MCOs become incorporated in more end products in future years, the sales growth of MCOs will likely even continue during years when the majority of other semiconductor products experience negative sales growth. MCOs gain popularity among the overall share of the semiconductor market. Another important impact of MCO tariff elimination is that it will enable freer and more open markets. The semiconductor industry today is one of the most global industries in the world. This illustration provides an example of the complex and global semiconductor production process. Design, manufacturing, assembly, packaging, and test, integration into an end product, and sale to a final customer are spread out throughout the world. As the manufacturing chain advances and becomes more complex, costly, and global, specialized semiconductor devices like MCOs will never be sourced solely from a single country. They are complex products of innovation that are not confined to any one region or any one country. Tariff treatment of MCOs via the ITA ensures that trade in this critical and growing segment of the semiconductor market remains free and open. The benefits of MCO tariff elimination are not confined to semiconductor designers and manufacturers alone. By reducing costs and promoting trade, MCO tariff elimination benefits all the players in the ICT ecosystem, including assembly and test operations, down from electronics industries and consumers. From a country point of view, countries that sign on to ITA expansion strengthen their position in the global ICT supply chain by ensuring that their domestic products have access to foreign markets, enabling their electronics industry to use a growing and innovative type of semiconductor product, and ensuring their citizens access to the most innovative technologies in the global marketplace. Not joining ITA expansion or eliminating tariffs on MCOs, countries risk removing themselves from the global IT manufacturing ecosystem by creating a disincentive for global firms to create a strong presence or invest in their country. So many market segments which will require MCOs and high-performing, lower power consumption miniaturized IC devices. The Internet of Things, or wearables, are an important example of this. Both of these examples, enabling technologies and the design and development participants expand well beyond the traditional companies today that we're familiar with. It's estimated by SNS research that as many as 48% of all wearable devices shipped by 2020 will support embedded cellular connectivity. And this presents a $1.1 billion opportunity for semiconductor companies and other suppliers, with an estimated 164 million wireless chipset shipments for wearable devices in 2020. So it's an important industry and heavily relies on MCOs and innovative semiconductors. I'd like to make a note on innovation, including next-generation semiconductors and ITA and eliminating tariffs on new semiconductors would eliminate uncertainty that arises as convergence in the ICT industry, the bringing of any technology functions into one product, continues to advance. ITA expansion would address the question of inclusion of next-generation or breakthrough technologies that are helping to promote continued innovation in the ICT sector. Conclude with these five thoughts. MCOs are integral to the ICT applications and economic growth and the future of semiconductors and innovation. As discussed in this presentation, tariff elimination on MCOs will have a profound impact on the entire ICT industry. It will fuel growth, investments, trade, and innovation, and strengthen the global semiconductor supply chain. For these reasons, tariff elimination of MCOs has been one of SIA's highest priorities and will continue one of SIA's highest priorities. SIA will continue to advocate for a swift conclusion of a successful ITA. Informal political consultations will be occurring over the next few weeks on this. It's our hope that negotiating parties will recognize the significant progress that has been made thus far and embrace the immense benefits that an ITA will bring and not let this incredible opportunity pass by. So I can conclude with that and now would open it up for any questions.
If you'd like to ask a question and you're on the line, just unmute your phone and identify yourself and the company you're with, and feel free to ask your question.
This is Jared to Intel. Were MCOs staged to the tariff reduction to be staged over a period of time, Daryl or Davey?
Respond to that. So the negotiations last week didn't get into the issue of staging. The whole goal was to first reach agreement on product scope, and then the negotiators would then begin negotiations on staging. So it's meant to be a two-part process. We haven't reached agreement on the product scope yet. But in terms of staging for MCOs, it's SIA's position that it would be in the interest of all parties to provide immediate tariff elimination for MCOs. Whether that will be acceptable to China, who previously listed MCOs as sensitivity, that's unclear. But at this point, our position is we'll be advocating for immediate tariff elimination, and then hopefully, if we reach a product agreement on product scope, the negotiators will then go into staging discussions.
Questions from the line?
Davey, this is Taffy. Hear me?
Yes.
I just congratulate you all, you, Daryl, and Caroline, for putting together a really excellent presentation and doing this webinar. I don't recall having you guys have done this previously, and I think it's a great tool, and it's a great job. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Yes, this is the inaugural IA webinar.
Way to go, guys.
I agree with Taffy. Very nice job. Can you distribute the slides? The slides are quite interesting, and I'd just like to have them as a reference point.
Yeah, absolutely, we can, and we are also planning to put this up on our website so that the recording and the slides will be live, but we'll certainly send you the deck as well.
Great.
That's great. Really great. I think these slides are fantastic. I've never seen this, seen it presented like this before, and frankly, even those involved in the original ITAs 18 years ago, I don't get as current on it as I probably should have been, and so the historical perspective is very useful. So, good job.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that feedback. It's very helpful, and we hope to continue our webinar series with other topics of interest and of note to our members. So stay tuned for our next installment on this series. But thank you all for joining. If there are no other questions, we'll go ahead and conclude for today. And again, we'll send out the slides to the group here, and we'll also post them on our website.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.